I'm a big Sunset guy to begin with. So how did you come on? I know that it's not your life, but how did you? Were these all separate experiences, and then you kind of embellished them to fit the story, or has it been like how have you been? You just been tracking things over the years, or how do you come up with that? My books are all self help. I need a lot of help, so I'm always writing self help.
Oh,
I've
I'm
never
going to write some of those too.
none of mine are novels. Not my probably the closest is Driven to Drive, which is follows my career. It's not really a novel per se. Um, so how do you come up with those kind of stories? Like, how do you know where to go with this character?
Well, you remember I've been driving since 1974. So as you can imagine, I have a lot of stories. And not only do I have a lot of stories, you hear a lot of stories. I could sit down with you for a while, and I guarantee you have a lot of stories. I mean, we all do.
Yeah.
And there are a number of drivers that I run into, especially these book signings and other drivers that I talk to. They pick the book up and they think it's a book about truck driver stories, and it's not. Everybody has those, and so. But to answer your question, my writing style is I'm a total pantser. I mean, I just sit down and start writing. So, and during the writing process, I have these stories that actually happened to me in the past, and I'll kind of work it in there. There's many things that happened to me in the past that are in the novel. But and of course sometimes they are embellished. I mean the protagonist is me for the most part as far as my personality, and there are many things that happen along the way. But again it's a novel. It's like up front there says a novel.
Yeah. That's cool. How long did it take you to write this book? I mean, it looks pretty thick here from the website I'm on here. How long did it take you?
Well, I recently did a written interview. I've done a couple of those, and I was asked that same question. And the way that I answered that question on the interview is that it just depends on how you define write, or how long did it take you to write? Well, how do you define writing? Because what I did is I started this novel sometime back, and then I just put it in the drawer and forgot about it. I never forgot about it. I had it in the back of my mind, but I'll just kind of tell you the short version of the whole story. But I belong to a writers group. I had another writer a gentleman who used to work for the old San Antonio Light newspaper, and he was an editor. He actually owned a small publishing company himself. But he approached me with the idea of the two of us writing together. He liked my writing style, and we were going to write a series of books, and this actually is the first of the series. But we were going to write a series of books about this protagonist and his adventures out there on the road. And so we got started together, and it turned out our writing styles were just too radically different. And so John Floyd Mills is his name. He went on to write a couple of his own books. And so and I took this project and went with it. We never got very far with it. But anyway, that was the start of it. This is some time back, and this fits in with your question, how long did it take? So John Mills died recently, or been a couple of years back now. And that was the final motivation for me to pick that novel back out of the drawer and see it through to completion. So it's been a couple of years since that time.
Okay, yeah. I think these things take a long time. Now, did you self-publish this, or is this published through a traditional print publisher? Or?
Well, I call it a hybrid. I did start out with a totally. I was going to go the traditional route, the totally traditional route, and where you go out and you shop it around the agents and so forth, and the agents shop it around. They find editors, and then you deal with the publishers and back and forth. This is that can be. I don't know how you did it, but that can be a very, very long process. Yeah. And for somebody like me with a background in trucking that doesn't have a lot of publishing history, to just go, hey, I got this novel there. You want to take a look at it? It's hard to find somebody to get interested. But I did do that. I tried that route for, I think, probably about 2 weeks. Yeah. And I thought, I don't have time for this. Forget all this. Yeah. So I decided to, I went through HarperCollins, a self-publishing arm of HarperCollins, Elm Hill Publishing.
Right.
So I say it's hybrid because even though it's self-published, they still have to meet their criteria for publishing.
Right.
So it's published all of the standards of HarperCollins. It's HarperCollins Christian Publishing. So I met all their standards and then went through that whole process, got it published, and so it's I call it a hybrid because it's actually self-published, but it's also considered a traditionally published book at the same time because it does meet those standards. So, and I have all the marketing advantage of HarperCollins and so forth. So it's a hybrid. So I guess the answer could be both.
That's a good way to go. I've never mine are all self-published just because I'm one of these guys. I'm not good with systems. You know,
Right.
I'm not a cowboy, but I like to. I hate having to wait for people to approve and all that stuff. So I self-publish mine,
That's
keep all the money, but you also got to do all the work.
exactly. Exactly. That's exactly. It's a trade-off. So there's a lot of there's not a good or bad way to do it, but there's just a lot of a lot of ways to do it. I actually know a lady who owns the publishing company. She actually owns the publishing company that John Floyd Mills owned.
Yeah.
When he died, she took it up. And she's actually been asking me questions about my experience with HarperCollins, even though she owns her own publishing company. There's so much stuff out there, nobody knows it all.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of ways to get it done.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it usually depends how you plan on using the book at the end of it. Do you plan on selling it yourself? If you want to be in the big stores, I guess like that might be one way. But self publishing's come so much now that my stuff's all available and wherever if I want to go that route. I don't know. So what's
Well,
next?
this
Go ahead. Yeah.
no, go. No, I was just going to say that this book's actually it's available anywhere.
Yeah.
If you go to my website, roughwaytothehighway.com, there are 5 online retailers there. It's Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books a Million. They're all there,
Okay.
and you can. And also, it's in the process of working its way into physical stores. So it may show up places I'm not even aware of now. I know it is being sold in a few stores now. So and that's again, there goes the hybrid thing. So it's working its way in the stores and it's available anywhere, probably worldwide. I mean, I was fooling around the computer the other day and I clicked on a site. I happened to see my book, clicked on it, and it was a site in Australia. And there were like, 5 or 6 or 7 people that were selling it on eBay in Australia. Don't ask me how that happens, but it's probably again the publisher thing. They see it somewhere, and don't. I'm learning as I go, Bruce.
Yeah. Well, a lot of that they probably have Amazon affiliate accounts or something like that. So they're selling on behalf of Amazon, and a lot of times that's how you get money. Someone buys your book, they also go buy a toolbox. That person gets all the money, however it's set up. So that's how a lot of the affiliates work that way. So they might be doing
Okay.
marketing there. And you can do the same thing on yours if you're interested in looking at that. So now you said someone else did the design. Give us an idea how you put the book together. You did the writing, maybe the stages, because there's a lot of people who are thinking of possibly writing a book and maybe not sure how to go about it. So I know I do because I'm a designer and an illustrator. I do a lot of that stuff myself. But tell us, give us an idea of how did you do the cover first? Who came up with the cover, the name, that kind of thing?
Well, oh gosh, where do I start? But the book, as far as the writing, I mean, 100% of the writing is mine,
Right.
and I belong to 2 writers groups. And the first one was where I met John, and then that's where it began. The second one is in the hill country of Texas here, and I got together with another writers group here, both awesome people. And so I went through the critique process where we bring it in, and so you bring each chapter, whenever, and work through there. And I call it working the stupid out of it. And that's basically what I do, because you think you're done with it, looks good to you, and then you bring it down there, and it's not as good as you thought. So I think of Ernest Hemingway said that all first drafts are blank. You can probably fill in the blank there.
That's right.
And so that's how it is. So we all need that. So I got that done, and I was fortunate again to have a lot of professionals in those groups, and they could help a lot of the editing. Actually, a number of them are professional editors, And so it went through all of that process. And so once I was done with it, and again, I started out with the marketing, tried the traditional route, and ended up going with the hybrid route. And so when I sent that off, let me back up a little bit. You asked about the cover. I had absolutely nothing to do with that cover. I mean, that's why I can brag about it all the time. But I I was actually sitting around. My wife and I were having dinner with uh, two of the pastors at the church that I go to, and he didn't even know that I was writing a book because I quit even bringing it up because hey Keller, where's this book you're talking about? So they didn't even know. I didn't even say anything to anybody. So I happened to mention I was writing a book, and he just popped up and said, "Oh, would you like me to do the cover?" And I said, "Oh, you can do that." So he said, "Yeah." So I just gave him the first few chapters, a very brief synopsis, and that's what he came up with. So it was just awesome. I mean, it was an awesome cover,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I can tell you stories like that.
yeah. No, that's great.
I can
That's
tell you
awesome.
stories like that all day long.
Yeah,
It's an absolute jump off the shelf cover.
it is. It is. It is.
So
It looks good on your
yeah.
site and everything too. So that's great. So what's our next steps? This one's come out now. It's just come out. This are you? Once you get on that rabbit trail, you kind of got to come out every 6 months with one, right? So you don't have 2 years like
Well,
this
you
one.
no, I don't. I don't. I'm going to have to get a lot more. I'm busier with these things. I'm having a number of people. I spend all this time writing, and they sit down and read it. And they love it, and they want the next one. I'm already getting that for quite a few people. They want the sequel, and so so they get into it. They didn't realize at the start that it is a series, even though Roughway to the Highway is a totally standalone novel,
Right.
but they're ready for the sequel. So I have to, I've got to get that done. I do have a start on it. I'm also working on another book, which I am going the traditional route with. I'm seeking sponsors and or agents and so forth for that one. At the same time, I got my novel going, which I'm going to keep writing on that one.